Hi, Rachel.
Hi, Ryan. How you doing?
Yep, I'm doing happily. I'm very happy. I'm in a joyous mood. This episode struck a chord with me. It made me very happy. How about yourself?
I'm feeling pretty good.
Oh, yeah?
I'm glad to be here with you.
Glad to be here. How about, are you feeling yum yum?
I'm feeling more yum yum than yum.
Okay, so
But
how can we get you to the yum yum factor?
I think we just need to keep talking.
Okay, fine. We'll talk about an episode of Babylon 5. We'll talk about it from a very heavy spoiler-based reasoning because we are a rewatch podcast, so that does mean, yeah, we go into it. So if you haven't seen the show before, well, good luck. I mean, Rachel, you've seen the show before.
Yeah.
I've seen it. Of course, we've both seen it. And the yum yum thing, of course, is a very personal matter between us because we were lucky enough, fortunate enough to be able to watch Star Trek Discovery's second season finale when it aired. The moment it aired, we were there. We're on the ground level. We're on the ground floor. We were there when it was opening up the curtains to show us the amazing line of dialogue that is yum yum. And we almost choked. We almost choked on how amazing that line was, but thankfully we survived. We forever remembered the incident that was yum yum, and we have carried it with us every day of our life. We have walked around saying, "Remember yum yum? Of course I remember yum yum." And then we just chant it, yum yum, yum yum, yum yum, because what an amazing line of dialogue. We had to name our podcast after it, give it as a rating system, and to ask the big important question of, Rachel, we watched this episode of Babylon 5, Season 2, Episode 2, Revelations. Who in this episode had the ability to say yum yum?
Who had the YYEU yum yum energy? And I have to say, Jack.
Ooh, I gave it to him in Chrysalis. That's a interesting choice. You know, it was a very tough one because we had a lot of people here. We had a lot of movers and we had a lot of shakers. But he's a good one. I don't know if I can top him, although Lanier had some minor moments because I could have seen him saying yum yum when he was rubbing that chrysalis and getting its ooze. Going, yum yum. Like the little fucking freak he is.
Oh, he is. He is a bit of a freaky deek.
Soon now. Soon.
Let's hear what the DVD description of this has to say. So we're looking at Season 2, Episode 2, Revelations, and according to the DVD summary, we have this. How long will Malari's complicity in the cataclysmic ruin of Quadrant 37 remain a secret? Meanwhile, Garibaldi has suspicions about Earth Alliance's new leader, and Delenn emerges from her cocoon. So, Rachel, we've seen this one many a times, and my history with this is I've always enjoyed it. It's not been one of the most memorable episodes. It has the iconic thing, which is Delenn emerging and giving us her new look. That is
Her husk first.
Oh, yes, the remains of her chrysalis or cocoon. But in all honesty, this episode is kind of a forgettable affair for me overall. It has its moments, of course, the stuff with Londo, the stuff with the shadow stuff. Yes, it needs to be here, but it's never been one of those episodes where you go, oh, no. Revelations. Oh, remember that one? It's more, do you remember the moments that happened within the episode? What about yourself?
This is one of those episodes, but it's fairly similar for me. When I watch the episode again, I'm like, oh yeah, those moments are in this episode. Because it's just kind of, it fills in the gaps. Like it has lots of things that need to be here for tying up and setting up. And it's serviceable. Like it's just the tracks in between the station sort of episode.
Yeah.
But it does it fairly well.
It's not necessarily filler, but
No.
it is building towards something, but it isn't
Yeah.
an event episode. This isn't
No.
a big episode.
And it
has
doesn't
big
try
things.
and have the moment.
Delenn. That's the moment, is her and her
Yeah,
hair.
yeah. No, I mean, like, yeah, like that's a smaller kind of moment. That's more of a character rather than I'm thinking like big spectacle explosions.
Well,
It
we do
doesn't-
get the shadow ships fucking
Yeah.
shit up, it's awesome.
But that's not the point of the
No.
episode. The point of the episode is it's going along.
It's exploring our characters.
But
That's what it's here for. It's exploring our characters.
I will say, this episode tries to do a fucking lot. And I did have some moments of whiplash. Of like,
Oh, yeah.
what?
Where there's a great moment that encapsulates this, where it is a tender, beautifully mature, fully realized scene of Sheridan going through grief, and then hard cut to Delenn's cocoon oozing and Linnea rubbing it, saying, soon. And then it cuts to Garibaldi being drained with a life machine or giving energy. It's
yeah.
a whole bunch of crazy stuff, but you said it. It goes for a lot, but I want to dive into that in this discussion of it goes for a lot and it succeeds in my book. I was never truly lost. I understood why it was cutting from scene to scene to scene to plot to plot to plot. And most importantly, our characters were coherent within it. Everybody
Yes.
added up. Everyone's actions made sense. Everyone's interplay made sense to me. Although I say this is a middling episode in my recollections, when you do watch it, it is a thoroughly entertaining episode. It is giving you everything you want. The ambassadors are here. The
It's not a
shadow stuff.
disappointment.
The shadow stuff is progressing. You have more info about Sheridan and his background. You have fun character dynamics and everything going on. Kosh is here. He doesn't really speak. He's just kind of there. But you have it all here, and it is clicking into place to remind ourselves of where we were a season ago. This feels less rushed.
Yeah.
How was it for you coming back to this one? How was it on this rewatch?
Yeah, it was interesting because to start with, the episode got me quite out of step with it.
What?
Going from the theme music to smooth jazz.
Oh.
I was just like, what?
Ooh.
What now?
Yeah,
We're not up to walkabout.
We're not up to walkabout. No, but this is foreshadowing.
Yeah.
So what? No, it isn't. No, it isn't. But it is some bullshit.
It is some bullshit.
Christopher Frank needed to get his shit into gear. What the
Yeah.
fuck was this?
Yeah, it was a lot.
It was a lot. We need to change his name to Frank because frankly, I fucking hated that music.
I fucking hated that transition. And I was just like, wait, is this a bad episode? Because this feels like it's starting off on the wrong foot. I don't
Yep.
know. I don't like it.
We talked about on our Patreon content of watching good and bad Star Trek that there are some technical hints of things that are going to be bullshit, whether it's
Yes.
costume or just you see a bunch of characters and you go, oh, this is going to be a bunch of bullshit. And music is actually very important to that as well. And that was a warning sign of, this weird music. Is this going to be a piece of bullshit episode like Walkabout with its piece of bullshit music in there? Thankfully, it isn't. I don't know why they made that choice. Can we talk about Earharts for a second?
I don't like it.
I hate Earharts.
Yeah.
It's weird because I love season 2, yet these first 2 episodes, I keep saying there are things I hate, like Warren Peffer, and I didn't like Sheridan originally, but I've never liked Earharts, and I'm thankful that they got rid of it because why do you hate it? Why do you not like it? Tell me your reasoning why, and I'll see if you match up with me because I have a very specific reason why I don't like it.
I have a very vague one of, it's not the vibe. It's not the vibe that I want.
Like the 1940s diner?
Yeah, I don't like it. I like the Zocalo so much better, and the mess hall. It feels much more grounded.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this feels more like a studio note of like, oh, we need to have some place where
the hip kids hang out.
Characters can meet up and
they listen to futuristic
drink.
swing music. And Warren Keffer's there all the time.
Yeah. Leave Keffy out of this.
Not Keffy. Our precious boy, Keffy. Can we not mention him? Did he even appear in this episode? I don't think so. We won't mention Keffy. He's gone.
Well,
he's erased from our brain. He's gone.
Bye-bye,
he
Keffy.
broke you last time. We don't want that again.
Yep. So, like, that's... I don't know how to get into... I don't know if I even want to bother trying dissecting it. Like, I just don't feel like the scenes in Earhart's match
the show,
the nature of the show. It doesn't feel cohesive. When it cuts to Earhart's, it always feels abrasive and sudden to me.
We praise Babylon 5, the station, for being so fully realized and having so many nuances. But throughout the show, there are things here that feel out of step, out of place, out of time. Like this Earhart's Officers Club or the Mutai Do place or later on in this season, the baseball diamond that's in the middle of the fucking station.
Fuck. That's a whole lot.
That's a whole lot of bullshit. And there's a few things like that, but I'll tell you what I don't like about Earhart's is it's a very elitist area of the station. I liked the mundane. I liked the very workman-like cafeteria area of the first season. It made our heroes feel more down to earth and feel like just regular people who were just ducking in there to eat, maybe catch up for a chat, and then leave. While here, Earhart's is this rich, elitist, 1940s World War II wet dream fantasy location in which everybody just gets to hang out and be officers. And I get there has to be a place for the officers to eat, but I like the canteen areas and the mess hall areas of season 1 and the ones we'll see later in the show. This just screams classism and elitism, and it makes our characters separate from us when they were closer to us originally. I don't like Earhart's because of that reason. It is alienating me from my relatable characters. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? A simple thing like a set, a simple thing like a location can make such a huge impact on the show, on the characters, because Earhart's isn't affecting the story. It's not impacting the writing or the script or the dialogue or the characters, but you place our characters in this world in Earhart's, the Officers Club, and it does something.
Yep, it shifts it.
It shifts it. It's so crazy how effective and detrimental things of production can be, whether it's music, costume, acting, directing, lighting, and in this case, a location. It's wild, but it is something that happens. And it's good to note it down with B5 because we praise B5 all to back to front, but it has some stuff here like this in which thankfully, I keep saying it, thankfully they learn. They abandon Earhart's after a certain period of time and they go back to the thing we like. Dr. Franklin is the character that in our main cast of people outside of Talia Winters doesn't get as much to do as everybody else.
No.
But when he's here, his stuff is very enthralling to me now. As I've gotten older and I've watched the show more, Richard Biggs, he draws me in, and the little nuances of the Franklin character and his ongoing themes and arc that are going to be explored in the show become ever so clear to me on a rewatch. Ever so clear. Let's talk about that. Did you notice or did you note some things down about Franklin in this one?
I like how as soon as he gets the okay, he goes off. I love that sense of determination that he has to save every single patient. But it does feel like he is approaching it differently than what he did in Believers. So you already get that sense. Well, like, he goes to the captain
to ask again. He did that in Believers.
Yeah, he still has that cockiness that he had, but it's more in his reaction to Sheridan approaching him and saying, like, no, you're not going to do this on your own, that I feel is different than what we saw him have to go through in Believers. It's not necessarily that he has changed, but the circumstances are
the dynamic.
Different. Yes.
You know what it is? Oh, man, I haven't thought about it like this, but you saying that, he has a hero complex.
Oh, yeah.
And okay, to rewind, when he asks Sheridan and he gives him the information, you're right. He snaps and he's like, I'm going to do this now. And you know that he's going to go off and perform this thing. And he's thinking that I'm going to save Garibaldi single-handedly with this machine. Damn if it hurts me. Because that's his character. He's the good doctor man.
Yes.
And we look at those character traits as noble instead of worrisome, instead of self-destructive or self-harming or negligent even. And then when Sheridan comes in to help him, it's two people who are heroes and or have a hero complex, because we talked about that last episode with Sheridan. He's the star killer. He's the winner. He's the best. Of course, he has insecurities and foibles. We see that very heavily in this episode. But both Franklin and Sheridan have this perceived hero thing about themselves, that they are the ones that have to do this. They are the ones who have to save the day. And to
the
have
burden is on them. They are the pinnacle of responsibility in their sectors. Like anything medical, it comes down to Franklin. He's the one. He has to bring it. He has to save everybody. And Sheridan is the same.
Well,
he has to be the one. He isn't in charge. He is responsible for the whole station.
But I think there is a difference in this part of the show with Sheridan, because I don't feel he's doing it on behalf of the whole station type of deal. I still think he's detached from that role. He's still detached from being the leader of Babylon 5. He's still coming at it from, I'm the guy. I'm the guy that can save Garibaldi. I'm the guy that does this. Sinclair, though, in Believers, he did come from it from the, I have to go against my own interests and do it on behalf of the greater picture. And whether you agreed with Sinclair's decision or not isn't the point we're making here. But Sheridan, in this moment, it is interesting to see how Franklin and him have a minor conflict there, but then both find an even ground and footing in which they share the hero complex and the hero role together for what is a win at the end of the day. But it is a little sign when you rewatch it that both of these characters have a self-sacrificing nature. Both of them are willing to give their life for Garibaldi. They're like, Sheridan doesn't know Garibaldi, but is willing to give his life energy. And that's a noble quality, of course, but we both know where the show goes and how both characters have major detriments and major repercussions from that type of behavior. Sheridan will only have a certain amount of life after a while because of this type of behavior.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword.
And a thing that popped up in my mind when we were watching this episode for the pod was wondering how much of Sheridan's decision to be there was because of the conversation that he had with his sister.
Yeah.
Because it does go from that scene to the next. So it got me thinking in a way that I don't think I have on other watches of, did Sheridan always plan to do that?
No, it's him running away.
It's him running away, because I always thought,
him taking a self-destructive behavior, but using it in the context of being good.
Yeah.
Because it works at the end.
Because he doesn't protest at Earhart when Franklin's asking him originally. He's just like, He doesn't say that he's going to be there. Doesn't say when it's going to happen. Franklin goes off, gets it set up, and then Sheridan appears.
Yeah, he appears in his evening wear. He's still in his dining outfit.
He's like, okay, I got to go do this because, and it's interesting. It's really interesting to see how Sinclair's PTSD and his survivor's guilt led him to do very similar behavior that Sheridan's sort of survivor guilt and regret and grief over his wife is leading him to do similar behaviors. But he is being much more measured. And I think that if Sheridan wasn't up against somebody as stubborn as Franklin, he really would have pursued the whole hog, doing it all on his own and being the only one that gives, and Franklin would just monitor. But it's because they both have that hero complex that they butt heads for that moment, but because they want the same thing, both in terms of Garibaldi, but also their own egos.
Or just general satisfaction of doing their job.
They reach that compromise.
Yeah, and
And we don't need to see them actually do that. We just need to see the success.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to say about all of this is we're digging deep in this. We're looking at it, and some people may not see it that way, and that's fine. This is our viewing of it, but I think what really makes it work and makes it feel subtle is Bruce Boxleitner's performance, because he is so reasonable and he's a friendly guy, and it doesn't feel as a worrisome characteristic as it does when we rewatch it for Franklin, because we know Franklin has already done bad things because of this type of reasoning that he goes through, and he'll go through it even more so. But because of Boxleitner's just natural perky charm and smiley attitude, him also being a smart character in the moment, Sheridan, of suggesting of what happens if this goes wrong, have you even thought about these steps? He's being the voice of reason here, but we know with how you talked about with Sinclair going through his PTSD and Garibaldi going through his alcoholism and Ivanova going through her grief and all of Delen's stuff, you can mask bad tendencies and you can mask these things behind perfectly justifiable logic. And it's not as if this is a warning, major, oh no, Sheridan's a bad guy deep down, or he's got major problems. No. When he does this, it is framed still as a good thing. They saved Garibaldi. Garibaldi's back in the show. Garibaldi doesn't know Sheridan, so he doesn't trust him, which gets a callback in season 5 if people pay attention when he does it with Lockley. I don't know you, therefore I don't trust you, is what he says to Lockley in season 5. But yeah, I think it's really interesting that this is the first real time where these two characters have been paired together, and to see how differently Franklin works off of Sheridan in comparison to Sinclair, I think Sinclair was a tougher boss for him. Yeah. Sinclair was far more of a stern boss and far more of a taskmaster on him, and didn't put up with his shit as much. He really didn't like when he was all cocky and it was like, it worked out in the end in Believers, and where's my apology or whatever. It's like, you could check the temperature in hell or whatever it was. Yeah. He gets madder at him. But one of the things I wanted to explore upon with Franklin and his ongoing arc is he feels the responsibility. He feels the need. And there was a moment here
he puts that weight on himself.
Does he? Because one of the things I wanted to touch upon is Delen specifically called for him when she was coming out, and he asked, I thought you wanted to get one of your own doctors. And she gives him a very Delen-like speech of, you're the guy, you're the one, you're the special person that needs to be here. And he gets that a lot in the show. Yeah, he does. And I think it feeds into his, and it's not like these people know that they're doing that, but when you look at it,
like it isn't out of nowhere. It isn't out of nowhere that he puts that on himself.
There's a road being built here.
He well and truly believes it, as do a lot of other people around him. That speech that I assume comes from Believers.
Oh, it is. The God speech?
They want me to be God. Yeah. But I didn't take it fully as that. I was just like, a Minbari doctor won't understand what Delen's going through in that moment.
Yeah.
And Franklin is a specialist in humans and exobiology.
But he only minimally knows about Minbari. That's the whole point, right? Like, he knows more than most.
He knows more human and he can be trusted. So, thus, he's the logical choice over a Minbari doctor.
But the way, I understand that.
The way that it's done,
the music,
I hadn't considered that's that reinforcement of
you're the one.
Franklin's self-centeredness.
Yeah, I like self-centeredness.
But it's also like it's a selfishness and a self-centeredness that we see justified a lot.
I would say, to give him some benefit here, because we're saying it like he's this super, I mean, he's a very flawed character. I mean, at this point, he's inadvertently led to the death of a child, but we love him for his flaws. But it's not so much selfishness here, or more just his sense of purpose is being reinforced over and over and over again. And that is a part of being a doctor. He gave that speech in season 1, and that speech is ringing true. It just keeps echoing and reverberating as we go on. And that moment there with Delen, I kind of gritted my teeth a little, because I did think about how he keeps internalizing this.
Yes.
Keeps internalizing this, and it's not going to be good for him in a season's time. And I think it's good to note these things down about Franklin, because, again,
he pushes it too far.
He is a character that doesn't get all the major big plot things like Sheridan or Vonifer or Garibaldi, but he does get these things, these lingering moments in which, when you do rewatch it, you feel it, because he has a very relatable, personal, understandable drama in the show, which is addiction, which is the sense of everything's on me. He has a burden to bear that you and I could fall into, that anyone can. It's always good to have that in a show in which one of our heroes later on will become a Jesus-like figure, and another one of them's become a hybrid, a bridge between two worlds, and all of that stuff's great sci-fi things, but you need Garibaldi's alcoholism, or Franklin's stims addiction, and Lita Alexander's isolation to ring true to us, to bring us into this world even more so and in a more clearly defined way, because science fiction is used as a medium, is as a genre, to touch upon real-world subjects using that fantastical genre trappings. But Babylon 5 will often remove the degrees of separation of the genre, where he is a doctor who gets addicted to drugs because he feels the need to use the drugs to do his job better, something that happens a lot.
Because he pushes his body.
Yeah. He sacrifices his personhood for the job, something that many people do. There's lots of foreshadowing on the Franklin side of things, but also when it comes to the thing that saves Garibaldi, the machine. When you watch this that first time and they use the machine to save Garibaldi, how did you feel? Because we talked about it in the Quality of Mercy episode, that we all kind of agreed when you saw it and it left, it was one of those classic sci-fi, life-changing, universe-changing MacGuffins that gets put in the vault to never be used again. But here, it came back. Do you remember what it was like for you when you saw that?
I remember being really satisfied that he brings it up, and it's at the start of the episode that it's immediately like, we're out of options. We have this thing that we're not going to ignore it anymore. And I was like, okay, that's really cool. They're acknowledging not just the machine, but that they've waited. They've held back on this information, and now is the time. Like, it's this or nothing. We're about to bust. Garibaldi's like, he might not hang in much longer. And I was just like, yes, this feels so much more satisfying than them going, oh yeah, that machine. Well, I guess we should, we will try a few more things before we get to that.
No.
It's like, some time has passed. We've seen Garibaldi's condition. Vonnevar checking in on him, how, like, that's become a daily routine, but, like...
Franklin's quiet dismay over all of this.
Yeah, and then, like...
That's the thing, it's quiet from him.
We've given him as much as we think his body can handle, but we don't know. We don't know. We don't have control.
Yeah, it's...
And I still love the way that Franklin describes that of, like... Sometimes, like, the body, the mind, the soul, whatever has to decide to push.
Mm-hmm.
And Garibaldi doesn't have that, so he needs that push from the machine.
Yeah.
To fully, like, get his body up and going. Like, it needs to have no choice but for the spark to come back.
Mm.
And I really like the way that they explore that sort of in contrast when Londo has his heart attacks later.
Yeah.
And the way that they, like, that's a thing that they continue to play with and see how different characters deal with that. And I like the way that the machine is used in relation to that, because we get it with Garibaldi. It doesn't get used with Londo, but I remember thinking about the machine when...
Well, it doesn't get used then because by then it killed Marcus.
It killed Marcus. So,
and saved Vonnevar.
Yes. So that was the third example that I was going to bring up. Like we get lots of different ways of this. And then on the first rewatch, I was just like... I was kind of disappointed that we didn't get to see it. We didn't get to see him play June Lockhart on the machine.
My favorite music number, June Lockhart on the life machine, please. No, but
I could have phrased that better.
No, that was perfect. One of the things I really think is great on a rewatch factor is we said in The Quality of Mercy. The Quality of Mercy told us directly that this would happen. Hey, perhaps if we save this machine to the side, we could help save a life if nothing else works. That's directly what happened. And here, they do that exactly again. Franklin and Sheridan talk about what happens if you hook yourself up to the machine and no one's around. You will faint, you will pass out, and it will keep draining your life until you are dead. That's what happens to Marcus. And Marcus is a character that has a self-sacrificing nature as well, and it is one that leads to a tragic end, but also a beautiful one.
So much guilt. That man has so much guilt.
But when I first watched it, it blew me away because, of course, they use this. I should never doubt the show's continuity and its understanding of its own things ever.
Yeah.
And the show will keep proving me right in that belief of don't underestimate the show's knowledge of itself, because here we are with this machine that was a classic example of what Star Trek or other sci-fi shows would do, of a thing that was great in one episode, throw it in the bin so it doesn't ever get brought up again to alter the flow of storytelling in all the other episodes. Here, they bring it in.
It's not dealt with in the same way that the Great Machine on the planet is.
Or Warp 11 in Star Trek Voyager, in which turns them into salamanders, but the Doctor can cure them off screen. So why not just use it all the way, get home, and then get cured off screen? It doesn't affect the Doctor. He's a computer program. But whatever. But yeah, the foreshadowing here is interesting because it doesn't the payoff doesn't happen for 2 more seasons of Marcus's demise. So you forget about it because they used it.
Yeah,
they used it already. The payoff happened. The payoff happened, and it's done. Instead, no, there's 2 payoffs, buddy. There's
Rule
2.
Of 3s instead.
Yeah, we had it 3 times in the show, and the third one was the most tragic. We have to ramp up the stakes. It's so fun, and
I'm not devastated already.
I'm not crying at all, but I'm glad that we gave our time to talk about Franklin, because he is a character that I think not enough people give credit to. But when you watch it and you know where his story goes, it feels so much more satisfying on rewatches, and the character work of it all. And Richard Bigg's performance, it gets better on each rewatch for me.
We don't have much choice, do we? Who are you going to hook up to the machine?
Well, I can't ask anyone else to take the risk if something goes wrong. I'll do it.
Garibaldi's resurrected with this machine. He doesn't know what's happening. He failed. The president died. He doesn't know yet that his right-hand man betrayed him. But don't worry.
Finds out in this episode.
He got Lou Welch on the case for some reason. He got Lou Welch on the case. Our good
got
friend.
his back.
Lou's the real hero. Can we give it up for Lou? We love you, Lou. We love you, Lou. And you love cake. So he finds out from using Talia Winters, and I've always had an issue with this because there's a randomly placed little mirror.
Yeah, it's just ultra
bullshit.
convenient.
It's bullshit. What they should have done is something along the lines of he did see him when he was passing out, and that has something better than a random little mirror that we had.
Check.
It's just impossible. That it's just a little bit too far-fetched. But overall, I like the idea of going to Talia Winters for help and how he still doesn't trust her, even though he likes her. She's still a telepath and she's part of the Corps. I don't trust her, don't like her, don't want her near me.
Nope.
And then he investigates his number one guy, his right-hand man. He gets Lou to beat the fuck out of him. It was awesome.
Go ahead, go for it. Make my friggin' solar year.
Delenn transforms. This is what we said. This is what this episode is built off of. We already talked about in our Chrysalis discussion what we had assumed she would turn into. Now, obviously, this was ruined for me via the fact I own this on physical media. She's on the cover. She's on the booklet. She's on the DVD menu. It's literally it's one of the thumbnails for this episode or a chapter select of it. So I knew what she was going to look like before she popped out of there.
Yeah,
and that is the bummer of physical media in that manner. And so that didn't hit across as well as it might have.
No. I remember being like, and when they have the slow moment and the music and everybody's jaw drops at the sight of her.
Oh, Sheridan's eyes bug out and his jaw drops to the floor and his tongue rolls out and his heart starts beating from his chest and his boner starts wiggling all around the place.
I was going to say, his pants are working hard to keep that in there.
And you hear his sister in the background going, Johnny, not in front of the delegates. Johnny, no.
That's not what we meant when we said table it.
What do you think of the look overall?
I like it. I think it's also because it's what she spends most of the series as. So I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. I don't know. I like it, fair enough. She looks like a elf and a princess. She has a little bone.
Pretty.
She has a little bone crown, a little bone tiara. Okay. Can I say something? I don't know if it ever bugs you. It bugs me so much that she has hair that goes underneath where the line is instead of over the bone. She has a bone that wraps around, but there's hair underneath. Do you know what I'm saying by that?
Yeah.
I don't know how that works.
No,
especially because she styles it so much later, and my head hurts, and I don't know, and they really do have to figure out what to do with Mira Falant's hair to the point in which there's a whole episode about what to do with her hair.
I love that moment so much.
It's silly as fuck, but I love it. One of the interesting things that I don't think I've ever really noted down before is who's the one person to ask the smartest question about her transformation? Do you remember and what they asked?
Is this before we see her? After we see her.
There's somebody who asks the smart question right off the bat, and it doesn't really get an answer or an acknowledgement. Do you know?
I was
John
thinking...
Sheridan's sister asks straight up, oh, cool, that's all right. But has she changed on a...
molecular level?
On a biological level?
Yeah.
Like that's a great question to ask, might I add.
And it makes sense that, like, she was friends with Anna because they're both very scientifically minded. And I enjoyed that moment as well. I was caught up thinking about before she transforms and Jakar's just like, is she alive?
Yeah, well, about that.
Good question. Good question, Jakar.
Now, what do you think about the explanation given for why she's transformed in this episode? Because it is a huge motivating factor of why she did it.
I don't know. I didn't question it. I am so familiar with why she did it and what motivated her and, like, my knowledge of the prophecy and what happens, as well as what's happened. I'm like, yep, that's what you wanted to do. Doesn't fully work out, but you did it.
Well, I think it's a great thing that you said there of, I didn't question it. I went, okay, that makes sense. She seems the type of person to do that. Although, when you look back on season 1, she is a shifty, lying, conniving...
Shady as fuck.
Shady AF Delenn, as we call her on the pod. But I bought it because of that optimistic, oh yeah, this is nice. And I'm so glad that the show pulled the wool over my eyes with that, because later in the season and throughout the show, there are people who don't buy it and don't like it and don't like the fact that this race of people who almost exterminated us are now looking like us. That bigotry and that fear and that
doesn't go away.
That rejection of why she did it from her own people as well as from Earth. Because let's not forget, the Mbryo, they're purists.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're all about purity. They're all about racial and cultural purity. They're in caste systems.
That's part of why I love her choice of word to describe what she is.
A bridge.
A bridge. Because a bridge doesn't belong fully to either side. And she doesn't know how to deal with that.
No, and it's awesome.
And lots of other people don't like that grayness. Especially the Grey Council.
Yeah. Oh, no, they're very upset, as we saw in the previous episode. One of the things that I mentioned back in our Star Trek Discovery discussions was at the end of season 1 of that television show, I talked about how I liked a certain avenue that they could have gone down with the character of Ash Tyler.
Yeah.
And when we were discussing it, I thought, yeah, that makes sense. But then when I was editing it and people have listened to that episode, I put an audio drop of why I liked it. I figured out why I liked it, which is
Delenn.
It's Delenn's journey could happen, which is Ash Tyler is a Klingon human hybrid whatever thing. And he leaves at the end of the first season to hopefully go off and find peace with both cultures and both people. And maybe he can serve as a bridge. And I thought, that's a great idea. Yeah. Maybe he could do this and there could be troubles between them. And I thought that was great. And then after we talked about it, I went, oh, that's Delenn. That's Delenn's story. That's Delenn from B5. But they actually fucking explore it in the television show instead of throwing it to the side. Her journey throughout this series will heavily involve that of, can she do that? Can she be this bridge that she speaks of? Can she be a person that can be a representative of both humans and Mbryo? And she will struggle with that and find her way of doing what she can with that, with Sheridan and with Sinclair even. Mm-hmm. It's cool. Her design's cool enough for me. It did make me wonder at the time, and I don't know if you had this, of did they change her look because the actress just didn't want to do the makeup anymore? And I don't think it is. I think what I read, it took just as long to do this makeup as the previous one because it was just so complicated and finicky. But I may be wrong on that. But talking about makeup, just quick. New Natoth? Nope. And that's the end. We're ever going to talk about New Natoth, by the way.
We're moving on.
There's nothing to say. She said no.
What's up next?
What's up next, Rachel? Well, that's a great question.
Are we up to Jakar?
We have our boy Jakar. He's back.
He's back, baby!
Can we give it up for Jakar? We love you, Jakar.
Love you.
Although he didn't return with having ladies leave his bedroom.
Oh, no, but he can test my pleasure threshold.
Oh,
anytime.
man. He tested those shadow ships' pleasure thresholds real well. He's back.
Oh, boy.
What's he up to?
Back to warn us.
Of what?
He's escaped the shadows. He's been investigating out on the rim. He's managed to convince his government to send one ship to Zahadum because he knows that that's like their original base. That like lots of other planets that have been uninhabited for at least 1,000 years.
And he knows this cause.
Are being activated because he's been jumping from sector to sector.
Looking
and scattering.
And he knows this because of his Bible told him, basically.
Well, yeah, like he knew that something was going on and he was investigating whether it was a new race or a very old race. Found out that it was a very old race, came back to warn everybody, tried to get his government's help, and they're like, yeah, no. Like, okay, you can pull this one favor, but that's what you're going to get for now. And... of course, because Londo finds out, Londo tells...
A good dear friend,
and
Mr. Morden.
As, like...
Because that's his favour he owes him. That's his favour he owes him.
I vary on how much I remember that the shadows are always with Morden.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to that revelation as it comes, but...
But, like, thinking about that, like, when Morden's asking... Londo that, and when Londo is telling him about that, and like just thinking of like what messages is Morden getting in his head from the shadows.
They're whispering into his ear. Yeah. One of the things that I think is important to note about Jakar is he's on a crusade. And this is one of many we'll see him go out throughout the show. He's got a mission. He's putting aside his own petty bullshit to help the greater good. And what happens is what happens always with Jakar throughout the show, which is he's trying to put aside that ego of his, that arrogance, that need for himself and his own people. He's trying to put it aside. He's trying to do the right thing. And then somebody else, mostly Londo, finds a way to crush that and leaves him devastated. Because that's his journey. That's his journey in the show.
It's too late.
He tried, and it's too late, and he's lost the hope. Although he has some minorly at the end with the poem he reads, he is still left a defeated person because of Londo. And that's their dynamic throughout the show, is Jakar finds that road. He finds that peace. He finds the ability to grow in spite of Londo's actions, in spite of Londo's ego and power-driven nature. While Londo, he struggles because he is his own destruction. And I think it's just really sad when you watch this episode where Jakar believes that we can do this. He even believes that Londo could be somebody that he could rely on. And Londo isn't. Londo's a piece of shit. He ruins everything for everyone all the time, including himself. I love the scene in the garden where he makes fun of the entire relationship he has with Mr. Morden, and he asks him, why don't you just destroy the entire Narn homeworld while you're at it? And there's a general levity to the scene, or a light quality to it, but then when Mr. Morden responds to that, it's deadly serious. You see the look of terror in Londo's eyes as he tells him, just one thing at a time, Ambassador, because you know he means it. You know he fucking means it, and so does Londo. And the fun of Londo being this little clown man is removed from us again, because we're being reminded that he's made a deal with the devil. He's made a deal with he's on the side of the bad guys.
There's no going back on that.
He's on the side of the bad guys. At this point, he's caused the death of 10,000 people. And he can be fun. He can have his little quips and his speech at the beginning about her being in a cocoon and all of the fun stuff. We can still have that. But there's those moments, like in the next episode where the Techno Mage comes along.
You see underneath.
We are reminded of Londo's failings and Londo's evil. that he has within him.
I believe that this little demonstration will bring you some very interesting propositions.
Yes. But what happens if I'm asked for another of these little demonstrations?
Then we'll provide it. Simply choose your target. A colony. An outpost.
Why don't you eliminate the entire non-homeworld while you're at it?
One thing at a time, Ambassador. One thing at a time.
We have kind of skirted around this part of the episode, but I want to fully dive into it, which is we learn about Sheridan's wife.
Yeah.
We find out that he was married. Mm-hmm. She died about 2 years ago.
She was Tasha's sister.
Was a scientist.
Tasha's sexy sister.
Yeah,
you know the one.
You said that already.
The one in the outfit.
Yep.
You know the one.
Yeah.
We all know the one.
Yeah.
She had to survive the rape gangs.
Yeah.
But in that outfit, though.
So we find out that he is still very much in love with her and is still struggling to process and accept that she's gone. And a part of why he is struggling with that is his hero complex. But it's also the fact that he didn't get that final I love you and goodbye.
And the general sense of overall guilt for having... He felt jilted her because of the military life.
That, she wouldn't have gone on that mission if he hadn't taken back their holiday plans, because they were planning to meet up for their anniversary. And he was just like, nah, I haven't got time. We'll catch up later. And then Lizzie,
his sister,
gives Johnny
a
little bit of a message that Anna sent to her about a week before she died, which explains that she was gonna cancel because she was super excited to go do this thing.
And she's similar to him, in which we'll have time to work this out. It's all good, but then
we really love each other,
so it's fine.
We make this work.
And then she died. Mm-hmm. And she died at Zahadum. We know where this story goes. She'll come back as an evil version, and the shadows are evil.
And a different actress.
And a different actress. We'll get to that road when we get to that road. Oh, I like this episode because of this story here. I think it's done super well.
I love the monologue that he has when he's just like, why do I keep on having to remind myself? Why when I see something do I want to go and tell her?
And then I have to remind myself that she's dead, but then there's a moment where I don't know why she's dead. It's so real. That's just so real. But one of the things I think is interesting to talk about is the variety of the scenes and the lack of them as well, in terms of, this made me think of a Star Trek Discovery episode done right, in terms of, there was an episode of Star Trek Discovery in which Michael Burnham's adopted mother came onto the ship, and she had to share a piece of information about Spock's background, and it was the same scene over and over and over again, and it was boring, and you don't even remember it. I'm looking at you now, you don't remember it, but all they did was whisper and talk about Spock, and that was it, over and over and over again. This
flashbacks.
No, there was no flashbacks for this one. It was just over and over again talk. Maybe flashback, don't care. This here is, she comes on the station, and it's the same scene, motivation, which is get Johnny to get over the grief, or get Johnny to move beyond or past where he's at. But what makes it have a variety is she, along with Sheridan, but she has different ways of doing it in each scene. She doesn't do it the exact same way every scene. The first...
No, we need to talk about Anna.
No, that's the first one.
We need to talk about Anna.
That's the first one. And then
we need to talk about Anna.
It clearly didn't work. her first approach
it's like, okay.
didn't work. Okay, that didn't work.
Okay.
I've got to try a different way of approaching this. And then
let's see how this goes.
And then this, and then this, and it builds up to, okay,
this is what I have to do.
This is what I have to give you. I've been debating whether or not to give you this.
She brought it with her.
In
but
case.
very clearly was hoping that he would be further along on his grief journey, that he wouldn't need this.
Yeah.
She wanted to help him heal on his own terms.
Yeah.
Not have to have this message and get that relief from his wife's words. But because it also complicates it in another way.
Yeah.
Like, if he accepted his guilt and moved forward,
This could have destroyed him.
like, this could have destroyed him, but he also could have been like, no, or like accepted that, like, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
I didn't destroy that ship. I'm not the one that's responsible. But it shifts it when it was both of their decisions.
Yeah, it does. It does. And we get a great insight into how he is a man who dedicates himself to the job, but he isn't inhuman about it. It isn't as if him being the military guy, him and Anna, both mature. They both understand. They both understood the job. You know, the military life, but it doesn't mean he doesn't have emotions. It isn't. He is this invulnerable.
Close off having a personal life. He just prioritizes his work
Because he has to. That's a part of it.
That's what he chooses by staying in the military and trying to go up the ranks.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he chooses.
But it isn't like how some Star Trek captains or characters can be, especially in the modern run, in which it's this weird indoctrination of sacrifice everything about yourself because we are Starfleet. He's vulnerable here because this has hurt him. This life cost him this moment in a way. That's what he's thinking to himself. But then he finds out this information and it reassures him and it makes him feel comforted to know that it wasn't just on his end and it wasn't just as lickety-split as he thought it was. The narratives that we build for ourselves when we lose someone, those narratives of, I should have visited them more, or the narratives that we...
really a complicated thing to go through.
It's very mature to see explored in this manner because usually it's far more melodramatic, but the lines of dialogue, the little nuances here make it feel so real because it reminds you of the moments you've had like that when you've lost someone, whether they're as close as a relationship like this is, or even one that's a little bit more distant. You think to yourself, could I have done better here? Could I have done more? Have I missed this opportunity? Is this on me? And you can't help but feel for him here because also Bruce Boxleitner's nailing it. He's absolutely fucking crushing every scene he's in. He is doing his best work here, I think.
You can't blame yourself, Johnny.
Yes, I can. If I hadn't canceled out, if I hadn't driven her away, she'd be here right now.
There is a particular moment in him watching the video that I want to unpack a little bit more because it connected to me in a particular way because of stuff that I've experienced. And it's the regret of not having said, I love you at the end of it. And the way that they deal with that being a thing of the reassurance that he gets from the message is partially because, like, he didn't get to say, I love you. So there was the worry that she was upset and didn't feel loved. And he's so reassured when she proclaims how strong their love is. And that he gets to say, I love you to her back in a way, because that's like she's talking to Lizzie. Not to John, but that's her saying, I really love your brother and we have a really strong connection, and like the distance doesn't change that. I'm still deeply in love with him, and I know that he deeply loves me because the reciprocal nature of that's acknowledged in the way that she expresses it. And then he gets to say it back. So then he gets this closure and this acceptance of, no, she knew and I know, and that's what matters.
Yeah. Something we should talk about is the role of Anna Sheridan in the show. She's the fridged wife. She's the dead person to make us feel sympathy for our main character. And the role was always that, because this is what Carolyn was supposed to be. This is what Catherine was supposed to be. How does that make you feel, knowing that JMS had to go through 3 women to get to this point? And that originally this would have been a Sinclair thing, right? Where Sinclair probably was too busy to say I love you to Catherine Sakai before she left, but don't worry, she always kind of flickers in and out and she'll be back again, and then this time she doesn't come back, and we were supposed to obviously feel very emotional about that because we knew who Catherine Sakai was.
Yeah.
But how does it make you feel that this character, this entity was always supposed to serve the purpose of being the dead wife for the main character, and then being the wife that returns but evil,
and to lure them to their demise?
What do you think about that?
Or revelation? I don't like it. Like, I get it, but it is just like, it serves a function. It's a very clear function.
Yeah.
But it is that thing, like, I still don't like it, though. What do you think?
It causes issues with me when it comes to this episode in particular, because of how real and heartfelt the grief is here. But it's built on top of a very cold, artificial narrative constraint. Yeah. It's nice to see a man be so vulnerable about a loved one that has gone, but it's only in service of the gotcha of his wife returning later, and was initially supposed to be in service of the wife that was taken too soon trick. I don't know how to feel, because if this was it and Anna never came back, I would be okay with it.
Yeah, I would feel better about it. But the fact that she comes back as this evil, villainous narrative twist device, it makes me upset, because this episode's portrayal of love and loss is done so well and done so naturally and done so... Yeah, it feels like it lessens it. In a way.
It reminds you it's writing.
Yes.
Retrospectively, it reminds you that this is a writing thing rather than anything personal. And that's sad, because it clearly is. It gets me emotional, but then I think about, but this is also that Anna Sheridan can come in the show and be an evil bitch. Or the knowledge of what the show wanted. Oh, this was in service of killing Catherine Sakai, so that this moment originally would have hit us more so because we knew her.
Yeah.
We didn't know Anna. But it works anyway because we don't know Anna, because of Sheridan's maturity and wisdom, and grief is so layered, and Bruce Boxleitner's performance yet again.
Then why do I still have to remind myself that she's gone? Why, when I see something interesting on the news, I'll say to myself, oh, I gotta remember to mention this to Anna later on. Sometimes I will turn to say something to her. She's not there, but just for a second. I don't know why she's not there. And then I remember.
It's time for our spotlight section of the show, the section in which we talk about an actor, we spotlight them, we give some information about them as a person, their roles, what we think about them in the show. And I know everybody's saying we're going to talk about Sheridan's sister, right? No, you thought we were going to zig? Guess what? We zagged. Who are we covering, Rachel?
Macaulay Brunton. Bruton.
Who played?
Not Macaulay Culkin, which is what JMS refers to him as.
Accidentally.
Accidentally.
It was a brain fart. He plays, of course,
Jack.
the evil
Michael Garibaldi's
evil aide.
evil aide.
So let's talk about his performance first. He is a very
Distinctive?
he's got a very distinct look to him because he seemed like a nondescript guy to begin with, like the perfect, hey, that's a guy.
Blend.
But then once you turn the evil spotlight on, like literal spotlight on him,
They do that.
you're like, oh, this guy's a villain.
Oh boy, did they do that.
This guy's clearly a villain. How did I not think this before? All you
also
need is
give
some
that
lighting.
sting of music.
And also, here's a little dirty trick that B5 likes to pull.
What?
Any guy with any slight curl in their hair, villain.
Yeah.
And they try to gel that shit with Morden. Doesn't work. His hair's too fluff and curl. And they try to do it with this guy
How do you feel
too.
about that representation as a curly-haired man?
I feel good. It's accurate. As an evil person, wearing an ugly sweater, because I'm Australian too, according to B5, and I'm trying to start up my local xenophobia business in the station, I feel it's very good representation of me. When I watched this show, I clap because I think
feel seen.
This is me on the screen when I see Garibaldi's evil aide, because I also want to shoot Jerry Doyle in the back, but it's, whatever. I can't do that. But let's talk about him. He hasn't got many other roles on IMDb. He initially started out in the show as a little player, and then he kept reappearing in that first season. He even played a different character. He played Tragedy in Eyes, the Ivonova Dream. So he was this little player in the show, and then they gave him something. They gave him this thing, and I even remember back then thinking, oh, wow, they really planned this out. But over the course of watching the show, I noticed that B5 really rewards the small players a lot of the time. Not all of them. As we talked about with Julia Nixon, they didn't reward her as Catherine Sakai. But there are some, like the guy who plays Verini, the guy who plays Naroon. They reward these people.
Dude at CNC.
Yeah, Corwin, of course. And he seems like an example of that, of somebody that they liked. And now
they're like,
we'll give you more. We'll give you more. We'll give you a juicy...
You've proven yourself.
We'll give you a juicy monologue and a juicy bad guy speech and everything. And now that time has passed and we know more about the behind the scenes, tell us a bit about this guy's background with B5, how he connects.
So he was originally brought on by the producers of Babylon 5 to kind of mainly assist Michael O'Hare.
Was that his role? I thought he was like a dialogue coach to begin with, right?
Yeah. But like specifically was brought on for Michael O'Hare.
Yeah, because I think he struggled a bit more because he was a theater actor.
Yeah, like
and
that
the transition into TV was needing some attention.
Explanation that the producers gave to Macaulay. And then like he built a very deep and solid friendship with Michael O'Hare and many other members of the crew because like he was around all of the time.
He was a trusted guy.
Yeah, he was a trusted guy, and you get that feeling that he didn't just help O'Hare, but he would help and assist where he could. So he made like a network of friendships across the cast.
Yeah.
But also a part of it was the producers
and JMS
all wanting a gauge of how Michael was doing, how O'Hare was doing in terms of his stability and his mental health issues that he was experiencing, which we've discussed various.
Yeah. This is all new to me. I didn't know this until the start of last year that this was a part of this guy's role on the show, because you look him up on IMDb And it just tells you acting role.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell you any other kind of production roles and things. Like, you don't get...
Because that wouldn't be necessarily in the credits.
But if he's like a dialogue coach or whatever, you think it would be credited somewhere. But no, we don't know this. We just think, oh, he's just an actor guy.
Yeah.
And you don't know that sometimes these small actors actually have other little roles in the production that we don't see credited or we don't notice them on IMDb. You just go, oh, he was just an actor guy that did 4 episodes of B5, that was it. But no, he was a guy that was there behind the scenes. He was one of the people that got to know what was happening with O'Hare. They trusted him. They knew him well enough to say, hey, this is what's going on. Are you capable of handling this? And could you imagine? Is he
going into the red? Can you bring him back?
That's a lot of pressure, because that wasn't what he was signed on for, right? He was signed, from my understanding, from my gauge, I thought he was signed on.
He got hired as a dialogue coach, and that's then something that he had to do more than that.
Yeah, he was offered to do more than that, and I can't imagine I don't know. I don't know his background when it comes to these things, but how prepared he must have felt for that kind of responsibility. But clearly he was, and he seemed to form a really great bond with Michael O'Hare. He shared
I hope that the friendship came first.
Well, that seems like the vibe I get from what I've seen of him talk about it.
Then they would tap Macaulay on the shoulder and go, well, how well is he actually doing?
Yeah, and from my understanding of things he's mentioned and things JMS has mentioned, he also honed in Michael O'Hare's performance. He was kind of, in a way, his ongoing director, telling him to pull it back, to push it more. And as the show goes along, that kind of maybe adds up to why O'Hare's performance becomes so consistent, even though realistically in the timeline he was suffering more as the season went along.
Yeah.
There is a supreme consistency to his performance after a certain period of time. There's something that clicks into gear, and I'm not too sure if it's this guy kind of giving him a constant stream of direction or understanding of or advice, because obviously there's different directors for so many episodes. They don't always have that consistency. You have some of the crew that stay on, of course, like the DP, he's always there, but having this guy there would have helped majorly, I guess, to kind of hone in on the ability to do TV and to find the voice of Sinclair. But isn't this amazing to know? If we did this podcast 5 years ago, I don't know if we could even have really delved into this as deeply as we are now, because JMS has talked about it more. This guy shared a post on the Babylon 5
like
Facebook
2018
group,
or something like that,
sharing all these amazing behind-the-scenes photos and interacting with people on there. And you just wouldn't know that, right?
No.
He was just a guy to us.
Yeah.
We probably would not have done a spotlight on him because he was so small and so... minor in the grand scheme of things, and his performance is good, but it doesn't knock you over as others do. But I think it was good to highlight him here because he played a role that not many people know about, not many people would consider. And I also think outside of O'Hare, I think it's always interesting to know that there are actors here or in other productions that aren't just actors. They have other roles within the show, whether a script supervisor or a dialogue coach, and they also happen to be an actor, and they get brought in to do some minor work on a series. Because IMDb doesn't give you all of that information. No. It can't. It doesn't. So that's him. I think nowadays he's a car salesman. I'm pretty sure he's a car or real estate salesman, which... good for him, great. That's awesome. And I would buy a car from him, sure. As long as he doesn't shoot me in the back, I'll buy a car from him. Make a deal. We'll figure one out.
Oh, you would rather buy a car from him than Danny DeVito and Matilda, right?
Or Mr. Morden being I think he's a construction guy now.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, what is it with these curly-haired, evil Babylon 5 men becoming,
You're seeing into your future, Ryan.
Oh, my God.
There's a new order coming back home, Garibaldi. You can either be part of it or you can be stepped on. A winner or a loser. I'm with the side that's going to win.
Home guard?
Home guard. That bunch of misfits. You really don't have a clue, do you, Garibaldi?
Look, if I were you, I'd start talking straight because right now you're in a whole world of trouble.
Revelations. What do you rate this episode on our impervious rating system of Yum being bad and Yum Yum being good?
I'm gonna go with a yum yum.
Yum yum.
I am going to go with a Yum Yum.
Yum yum.
I thought it was a major improvement over the previous episode. It felt like more of its own. It felt like an episode.
It stood on its own.
It did a good balancing act of still being an introduction to things, still setting up things, still paying off things, but being its own episode with its own momentum and its own structure, and it felt very good in that manner.
There were more things I liked, but there were some things that I did not like.
We get it. You didn't like that swing jazz music.
Fuck off.
We'll give Frank a word. He won't do that again, like he won't do the comedy music again.
Oh, God damn it. That man needs to be controlled. Okay, Ryan. Hit me with it. What's the beautiful, gloriously written description of next week's episode according to the DVD's brochure?
So, next time on Babylon 5.
On the next Babylon 5.
We'll be talking about The Geometry of Shadows, episode 3 of season 2. It goes as such. One Drazi faction wears green, the other wears purple, and both sides wear Ivanova out as she mediates a dispute. The emblematic colors ignite. A wizardly techno-mage, Michael Ansara, brings awesome magic and an ominous prophecy. That's right, people. Techno-mages. Techno-mages in the house.
In the house.
Techno-mages, will we find them cool or lame? You have to listen in next week to find out. In the meantime, you can follow us on those social media platforms, all of them, Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, Tumblr, TikTok, blah, blah, blah. You can go...
subreddit.
Yeah, subreddit, I said Reddit, and you have to just type in YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast to find us on those. All of this is in the description.
Yes. And if you want to directly contact us, hit us up on that email at yumyumpod@gmail.com.
Yes, and if you are financially able to, or you have the incentive, come support us on Patreon. That's right, we have a Patreon in which we make content. We have 3 different tiers. We have 3 different shows on there. We talk about the X-Men movies, we give our thoughts on other shows, and we're going through the best and worst rated episodes of any given Star Trek. It's a fun time. You can be a part of a group Discord if you come join us over there. Come on, do it. It will be a grand old time. We'd really appreciate it. Until next episode, Rachel, I think we have to lament the fact that although Jakar was here and he had some amazing lines, he didn't say the iconic phrase.
Good eating to you.
He didn't say good eating to you, but thankfully you said it to me. And I accept that, and I say it right back to you. Good eating to you, Rachel.
Mr. Cat.